In the 2013 BCS championship game, culminating the 2012 season, Notre Dame was losing to Alabama, I believe, 35-0 at one point, lost 42-14. So a 28-point loss by Notre Dame to Alabama. That was 8 years ago. At this rate, Notre Dame should be able to compete with Alabama in about the year 2100. They have inched closer by 4 points in 8 years. Brian Kelly thought his Notre Dame Fighting Irish were equipped and capable of competing with Alabama if they executed and if they controlled the clock. They attempted to do those things. They did them with some minor success in the first half, but Alabama way too much in this one. Too explosive. That's what it comes down to. If you would measure the success of each play, offensively and defensively, for these two teams, play by play by play by play, Notre Dame would be more competitive on a stat sheet than you would think if you measured each play and who won each play. But the Notre Dame victories were by 4 and 5 yards on the ground, mostly in the running game. They were minimal gains. They were grinded out. We were successful. We stayed ahead of the sticks. We were able to stay on our game plan and stay on track. The Alabama plays are explosive. They're game-changing plays. They're drive-making plays. The first 3 drives of the game for Alabama, they went a handful of plays each drive. Each drive went about 2.5 minutes, and they ate up between 80 and 97 yards per drive. The Alabama execution, the talent, the athleticism, all of it put together on the first 3 drives, offensive drives of the game, was outstanding and gave them a 21-7 lead. Not a blowout, not an annihilation. It was not 35-0 in the first half, a joke of a game, but they were just clearly dominant, faster, more explosive. And the execution, there are teams out there, just a couple, but there are teams out there named Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State that have the same athleticism as Alabama, but the execution is just phenomenal. How many things did Alabama do wrong in this game? Starting with the offensive side of the ball. How many things did Alabama do wrong? Basically nothing. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Well, I thought I had a pretty good feel for this semifinal. And I'm glad that Todd Blackledge kind of backed this up in his point during the game. You got to have chunk players to beat Alabama. You got to have the skill on the outside, and Notre Dame just doesn't have it. You know, they just don't have it.
No, they don't.
And Dave Greenshield, by the way, I'm sorry.
Of course, David.
I just wanted to say, I mean, that's the one thing I noticed when I watch them. I mean, is that, when your number one option's your tight end, and you don't have the wide receivers on the outside, the difference makers. I mean, is that the one thing that Florida had when they had wide receivers? Is they caused the matchup problems for the Bama secondary. Saban even said so after the game. They had a hard time matching up with Kyle Pitts and the other really quick wide receiver that they had. And, Notre Dame just doesn't have that type of personnel.
No, they don't. There's a big difference between the teams that we know that can possibly compete with Alabama and Notre Dame. And like we've talked about on here, it is great to have a tight end. A tight end can be a tremendous weapon on offense.
Right.
A guy to go to on third down, a guy to hit down the seam, a guy to be a mismatch against a safety or a linebacker. But that should not be the guy that you go to, because he's not going to get 30 and 50-yard plays. He's going to get the 8s and the 10s and the 12s, and that's what they have. They're very talented at tight end, 3 deep at tight end. But and Ben Skoranek, the Northwestern transfer, plays wide receiver, and he looks like a tight end. They don't have the other guys that you're talking about. No.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you have the chunk players, that helps, because so much of college football is being able to generate big plays anyway. And, that was something that the parent. And you know what? You kind of see it with Notre Dame in these big games. 7 points today. The last time they played Clemson, only 3 points, in that semifinal game. So, yeah, I really wonder if Kelly has kind of maximized what he can do at Notre Dame with the talent that he's getting there. I mean, unless he retools his staff and they can really start to bring in the better position players, I just can't see him competing, eventually on a national stage. I mean, I think they can be a top 10 program, but I don't know if they can ever crack the national team as far as the playoff.
And what's odd about that is that there are all sorts of explosive players playing at schools that are nowhere close to competing for playoff spots.
Right.
Doesn't Ole Miss and Tennessee, North Carolina and other programs like that, Penn State in recent years have players that fit exactly the description you're talking about?
Right.
USC has a handful of them.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hey, I wanted to ask you about the early game. I don't know if you got to that today, the Georgia Cincinnati game. By the way, I just got a feel for Cincinnati, Mark.
Yep.
I thought they played their hearts out. Georgia's defense in the fourth quarter was the difference in the game, no doubt about it. But did you think that Fickle made just a tactical bonehead decision not to run the ball on 3rd and 2?
I do. I want to go back and watch the sequence again because I think I jotted down exactly what the situation was. So I've got all my notes right here, and I thought I jotted down because there were a few times in these games this afternoon that I thought, okay, I want to be able to recollect exactly where the ball was on the field, what the time on the clock is, and the timeouts left, and then do the math and figure out if that's a good call to make. But I think he just wanted to put the game away, and he failed to do so. And, yeah, it seems to have been a strategic. He would have put Georgia in an extremely difficult position, but he went for the killer shot.
Right. Well, Mark, a friend of mine was telling me so many games, and he usually says this about the NFL, but I believe this can be said now about college here. So many games are lost by poor clock management. And to me, it's math.
Yeah.
I'll say here's the math. It's 1 minute and 34 seconds. He runs a dive play into the line. Even if he doesn't get it, he's going to eat away about 40 seconds left off the clock just by doing that and getting stopped. Because remember, Georgia was out of timeout. So if Georgia's getting the ball back with like 45, 50 seconds left or less than that maybe, because they only got it back with 1 minute and 28. I'm sorry. I don't think Georgia is getting into field goal range with 45 seconds left and no timeout.
And so Cincinnati got the 1 first down. That should have iced the game. I thought that iced the game. And that's one reason why I'm not criticizing Kirby Smart, but I certainly was doing a little math like you just did, but a little bit more difficult math because it was a previous series. They had the ball 4th and 3 at their own 43 with about 1 minute 45. And I thought, they don't need a touchdown. They only need a field goal. So they only need about 25 yards here. So that should play into it as well. But, and I understand you practically lose the game if you give the ball up there. Well, maybe not, because a field goal doesn't lose the game. But I thought he had made possibly a tactical error. There's an argument there to be made, giving the ball up there, because I thought, yes, if Cincinnati can practically kill the clock, but they didn't go through the process of killing the clock.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was going to run like maybe a quarterback draw or something like that. I know Georgia's defense was probably sitting on that, but you never know. Maybe you buzz the seam and you only need 2 yards. So, yeah, I think, I mean, I get where he was trying to. He was going for the jugular, all that. But at the same time, I just think even if you're stopped and you don't get your 2 yards, at least you kill that much of the clock. So, I tell you what, though, I'm glad I took the Cincinnati getting a 7.5. I'm happy for Fickle. He showed that his team can compete. Yeah. By the way, you had the one guy calling about how the Division 5 or the non-Power 5 teams can't compete. I think Cincinnati made a statement in this game. What do you think, Mark?
I think they did too, because people will point to the opt-outs and the personnel issues on the Georgia side, but Cincinnati had a few as well. So it wasn't just all Georgia. And I made a list of the Georgia opt-outs and the injuries, and I was going to kind of go through those and try to determine, how much did they really lose? Because you also have to consider at this point in a season, and we know that these teams didn't play quite as many games as they typically do, but once we get to postseason play, these teams aren't at full strength anyway. They usually have 3 to 4 starters out, something in that range, I would think would be the average. But I think that if anyone out there considers Georgia to be one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the nation, which I do, maybe they're just a spot or two less than that because of the personnel losses. Cincinnati came within a whisker of beating a legit top 8 to 10 team in the nation, even with the personnel losses.
Right. Well, I listened to our buddy Uncle Lou, and he even admitted during the cast he thought Cincinnati, was a legitimate top 10 team. So he was giving them credit. But hey, a quick prediction on the game. I just want to say this, Mark. I have to say it. My heart says 31-30, maybe 35-31, Ohio State. But my head says, unfortunately, 35-28 Clemson.
Yeah, so somebody contacted me on Twitter and asked me what my prediction was, or I think it was actually a Patreon member who saw my prediction on Patreon. And I'll just, since we're so close to kickoff here, I'm in the same boat where I try to be as objective as I possibly can be. And anybody who watches me on a fairly regular basis knows what my deal is here in covering college football. I try to be objective and analyze it neutrally and all those things. And that's why many people can't tell who I root for. But full disclaimer, I'm an Ohio State fan. I will be fully rooting for Ohio State to win this game. But, and therefore, yes, there's the huge tug toward, well, I got to predict them to win. But because I do what I do, I want to be objective. And I just think that while to me, the two teams are even in terms of talent, and if they had the same number of reps and that they had shown us a similar season, just like they did last year going into this game, they had shown us pretty much similar level of dominance in going 13-0, where I thought it was a toss-up, and I thought Ohio State actually was the better team slightly. When I say slightly, not a decidedly better team, but a slightly better team going into the game. And I left the game last year still believing Ohio State was the better team, not significantly, but I believed Ohio State to be the better team despite the outcome of the game. This is the exact opposite. I believe that I will not be shocked in any way if Ohio State wins the game. They are certainly talented and capable enough, but they really need Justin Fields to play a tremendous game, and they need the defensive secondary to play a game that we have not seen this group of defensive backs play. And because there are just too many question marks for Ohio State, I am picking Clemson 38-31.
Okay.
There just seem to be more known factors for Clemson.
I agree. More games would have helped them to develop depth and just improve on where they were, some of their shortcomings. I will say this, a great game out of Fields, and I just think a balanced attack would help. If Ohio State can establish their run game, I think that would be huge.
Sure.
I'm leaning that way, but I'm just hoping they pull it out. So either way, I will be getting all the Mark Rogers after this game is over with.
Absolutely. We'll be back here, Dave. We always appreciate the call.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thanks, Dave. We've got Notre Dame driving, of course, for a meaningless score, unless you might have a buck or two on the game. I only predicted the game, and therefore I would like Notre Dame to get into the end zone. That That illegal shift, illegal procedure call on the last drive really hurt me with Notre Dame. There's about 9 minutes left, and they were down 31-7, could have made it 31-14, scored the touchdown. And I hate to see touchdowns and plays affected by officiating when it really didn't affect the play, but you got to call it because it was a penalty against Notre Dame. So anyway, they've got a chance to score here. And so to the betting public, this is a big possession here for the Irish. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
NT8, buddy.
There he is. I got your post right on the screen right now.
This is totally a waste of time. You've got Alabama Crimson Tide undefeated, and you've got the OSU, Ohio State University, undefeated.
Yep.
But both of them have to play against one-loss teams. This is a waste of time because we're not going to see Alabama play Ohio State. I mean, so today was the Rose Bowl game between Notre Dame and Alabama that aren't even part of the Pac-12 or the Big Ten.
Well, yeah, I completely agree with you there, Navy Thomas. That should be completely separated from it. The Rose Bowl should be the Big Ten against the Pac-12. This is not a Rose Bowl game. It's a college football playoff game. Why they call it a Rose Bowl? It's a joke. They just put the decal at the 50-yard line and call it the Rose Bowl. It's idiotic to even call these playoff games Sugar Bowls and Rose Bowls. They're not Sugar Bowls and Rose Bowls. They're just playoff games. I completely agree.
What's this Ohio State versus Clemson play tonight? Is it
that is the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Big Ten belongs to play there, right?
Yeah, it's stupid.
This is so pathetic, man.
It is stupid.
I wanted to throw at you.
I completely agree with you. It's dumb.
So we're not gonna see Ohio State versus Alabama undefeated. And it's a waste of year.
Wait a minute, Navy Thomas.
You
You understand if Ohio State wins tonight, they're playing Alabama next week.
Where are they going to play? Gator Bowl?
They're playing.
Bowl?
They're playing in Miami.
The Orange Bowl?
No, it's not the Orange Bowl. It's just the national championship game.
Yeah, okay, buddy.
That's what it is.
I believe that. Whoever wins, Crimson's got to go down there and play, right?
Alabama has beaten Notre Dame. They will play in the national championship game against the winner of Clemson and Ohio State.
It's a waste of time, man. All right, buddy. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. We love to talk playoff football with Tom because he is totally disgruntled with the system, which the system is better than the BCS, certainly, but it is a debacle otherwise. And we talk about that all year, so we won't talk about it right now. I will say that it's ridiculous to put a Rose Bowl decal in Dallas and call it the Rose Bowl at a college football playoff game. Just call them college football playoff games. They have no attachment to what we grew up to and what the traditions are of the orange, the cotton, the rose, and the Sugar Bowls. There's no connection. None. The Rose Bowl is a Big Ten, Pac-12 affair. The Sugar Bowl is hosted by the SEC. The Orange by previously, the Big 8 and the Big 12. That is completely gone away. And then we have the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl. It just doesn't make any sense to even attach bowl games to these playoff games. Don't understand that. Michael is asking whether this is Brian Kelly's last game at Notre Dame head coach. Well, last game based on his choosing or based on Notre Dame's choosing. Notre Dame is going to retain Brian Kelly as the head coach. He's doing an outstanding job. I will say that. unless the NFL is, I don't know of any particular NFL teams. I'm trying to think. Let's see. We're coming up on the last day of the regular season in the NFL on Sunday. Therefore, Sunday night and Monday, we will hear about all the firings in the NFL, which we expect. I'm not a big NFL guy anymore. I used to be on top of the rosters and the stats, but I still love the NFL. I watch it, but I don't keep up with the news from day to day. I just watch the games on Sunday. So I don't know who's going to get fired in the NFL. I would think the Jets coach, the Jags coach, who else? The Lions coach got fired. So there are some openings out there. So unless you know of openings that are being attached to Brian Kelly's name, then that could be the case. But in terms of Brian Kelly being in trouble at Notre Dame, I can't imagine. Nate is telling us this is ridiculous. Michael, we appreciate you encouraging everyone to hit the like button. So we'll be here up until kickoff. Appreciate 171 on the line. We had almost 500 on the line after the Cotton Bowl on Wednesday. Would love to get those people back to get us past 500 and keep going from there. And then we'll be on late tonight after Clemson, Ohio State, after what is hopefully an entertaining and close and competitive down to the wire classic of a game like what we saw last year. So this is year 7 of the college football playoff. And in terms of the semifinals, in 2014, we had one great game, Ohio State, Alabama. We had a dog of a game where Oregon State throttled Florida State 59-20. Although, to be fair, it was a good game in the third quarter. It wasn't 28-0 in the first quarter. We're done. It's over. One of those deals. So the final score can only say so much. You have to put the game into context. In that first year of Oregon, Florida State, it was 18-13 in the third quarter. So it was competitive for about 2.5 quarters. Then Oregon blew them out by 39. 2015, we had one annihilation where Alabama dusted Michigan State. But then again, it was still a game with a few minutes left in the second quarter. Then Alabama just trucked them. In the other game, you had a 1 point, I think it was 10-9, Oklahoma Clemson at half. And that was supposed to be a close game. It was basically a pick'em game. Clemson was only up 1 point, or maybe Oklahoma was up by 1 point. It was like 10-9 at halftime, or 17-16, something like that at some point in the third quarter. So that, again, was a fairly competitive game, but not into the fourth quarter. Then Clemson blew them out, whatever the final score was in that one. That's the only college football playoff game that I can't remember the score to. It's like 37-20 or 41-20, something like that. Clemson beat Oklahoma. Then in 2016, Alabama-Washington, again, people depict that as a blowout. I don't consider that a blowout. It was 24-7. It was 17-7 with about 10 minutes left. And then Alabama took it from there 24-7. I'm not saying it was close. And then the other game was supposed to be a great game with Clemson and Ohio State. And, of course, the Tigers won 31-0. And we'll go through the rest of the history. Just trying to give you context in terms of people criticizing the playoff for having too many semifinal blowouts. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello, it's me, Roberto LeBron.
Hello, sir. What's going on?
Well, I'll have to watch that embarrassing before. Although they're giving a little bit of a fight in the game.
Yeah, we all pretty much knew what was going to happen in this one. So even though the score wasn't horrible, Notre Dame never really threatened in a way that I think Alabama was that concerned.
Yeah, I saw my ex-university completely blew it on the 3rd and 2 call.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't the only time Luke Fickle went conservative. Like, I was at a game in his first year, where in the SMU game at Nipper Stadium. He didn't decide to. It was like very little seconds, like less than a minute, I think, on the clock. He didn't want to get one final possession to get at least a field goal. We went to overtime and had to watch them lose that overtime.
Yeah.
Got to do a better job of play calling, though. or at least, I don't know.
Well, the man's done an amazing job there, so I don't think we can have much criticism for it. Certainly, we can question the late game situation, but it's easy for us to sit here and go through it.
I mean, if it happens consecutively or consistently, like say in the AAC championships, then probably that could be something. I don't know. Also, I saw Northwestern representing the Big Ten, the big win against Auburn too.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too crazy about it, but it's a win against a decent team. It's not really a like matchup, though. That's the only issue I have with this year's bowl game matchups is it was really not a like matchup, a like seeded matchup that we would see normally, kind of like the Indiana Ole Miss game.
What does that say about Ohio State's competition in their record and their resume?
I don't think it really tells us much because Ohio State obviously struggled with Northwestern, but Northwestern's a good team. I think they're one of the top 15 teams in the country. They played an Auburn team that's probably, the fifth best team in the SEC. Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Florida are better. So right around the fifth best team in the SEC. That's about what I would expect. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but Auburn had a lot of opt-outs, key opt-outs in that game. So what's that?
Who they lose?
Tank Bigsby, who's one of the best running backs in the SEC. He was out. Got a whole list of them. Don't have them right in front of me, but yeah, Auburn was missing quite a few key players. Anthony Schwartz, maybe the fastest man in college football. Again, Tank Bigsby, they missed him. Christian Tut's one of their top defensive players. KJ Britt, KJ Britt, one of their best linebackers, one of their best defensive backs, Roger McCreary. So they were missing quite a bit on that side of the ball. Northwestern was missing personnel as well. Isaiah Bowser, who used to be their starting running back, he was out of the game. Drake Anderson, their leading rusher, missed the game. Kyrie McGowan, who's one of their best receivers, missed the game. Northwestern's sack leader didn't play. Iku Leota and Greg Newsom, their best cover corner, who's probably the best cover corner in the Big Ten, he didn't play in the game. So Northwestern, if Auburn wants to make excuses, Northwestern missed probably just about as many players as well, if not more.
Like 13 at one point. And yeah, we lost Master Teague and Harry Miller, as well as Zach Harrison and Friday. Well, that's a little bit of damage on.
Yeah, Baron Browning.
D-line, offensive line. But I think defensive line, we have plenty of depth. Same with the running back, but losing Harry Miller.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been a report on the Clemson side, but as is being pointed out right now on the call, want to let everyone know, Harry Miller, Baron Browning. Who else? Who am I missing? Baron Browning, Harry Miller, Master Teague. Who's the other one? Friday. Missing from the game today. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, enjoy the game. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we're coming up on kickoff here, and Alabama has finished off Notre Dame 31-14. Again, a Notre Dame late touchdown means something to some of you, either for the good or for the bad. Here we go. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line with 182 on the line? Yeah, hello. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Michael.
Hey, Michael, what's going on?
Not much. In reference to, I didn't know if you got to the other part of my question I asked you earlier about Brian Kelly. But no, because I've heard some rumblings about that he might be what maybe try to. There might be some NFL teams that want him, or do you think he'll maybe entertain
talk to him, but he ended up staying in Notre Dame.
Yeah, I saw your question. I went over your question. I didn't know whether you meant that Notre Dame was going to get rid of Brian Kelly, which is not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen. But I knew there was talk about maybe he might leave or something on his own accord or something.
Yeah, I have no idea what Brian Kelly's interest in the NFL is. I don't know that he's ever stated that. Certainly people could let us know in the live chat if they've ever heard Brian Kelly say anything about wanting to coach in the NFL. I don't know what his interest is in the NFL, but I would think that he would be a candidate. Yes.
Now, another thing I'm trying to figure out is him and Butch Jones brothers, or are they not related? I mean,
Butch Jones, they used to coach at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Brian Kelly brothers?
I don't know why I keep thinking that. I thought I read them once on their like related to or something. I don't know why it is for.
I've never heard that.
I don't know.
They both coached at Cincinnati. I can tell you that.
But was he there? Was Bush there at the same time, or was Bush somewhere else before while Brian was at Cincinnati? Maybe that's what I was trying to figure out or something.
Well, Brian Kelly would have been there until 2009. Then it would have been Butch Jones after that. I don't know the exact years. I don't know if they overlapped on. I don't know if Butch Jones was on Kelly's staff. I don't know any other connection between the two.
Now, was Brian Kelly on Mark D'Antonio's staff there at Cincinnati?
I believe so. I'm not positive about that, though.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't even know why it is what it is. I was just running. All right, dude. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Michael. Enjoy the game tonight.
That was.
All right, everyone. 166 on the line. We're coming up on kickoff. Ohio State and Clemson. If you've got a score, give it to me. Clemson is about a 7.5-point favorite in this one, and most people think that's because of game reps and Ohio State's secondary not looking great. And, of course, Justin Fields has had his issues in a couple games this season. Got criticized for his Indiana performance, although aside from the 3 picks, I would certainly tag one of them as being a poor tactical decision. The other 2 were basically throwaways. He was just trying to make a play as an athlete with somebody on his back, but he threw for 300 yards and accounted for 3 touchdowns in that game. The Northwestern defense is no joke. People disrespect and underestimate and underrate Northwestern, and that continues. And they beat Auburn by 16 points today in a bowl game and had another successful season. And their defense is, again, no joke. They've got one of the best secondaries in the country and one of the best scoring margins defensively in the country, yards per game, red zone defense across the board. And so Ohio State struggles on offense against Northwestern. Shouldn't be that alarming. And Chris Olave back in the lineup for the Buckeyes today. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Hello?
Hey, Mark, Alabama got the win.
They did. We're all surprised.
Yeah, I am as well, but man, I mean, I'm gonna watch that Ohio State Clemson game, and I heard what you said on the stream that Clemson was a 7.5 point ahead of being a favorite. Is that correct?
That's the last line I saw.
Oh, okay. My final score prediction for that game would be Ohio State 38 and Clemson 36.
38-36. Sounds like a barn burner.
Yeah, definitely. But Alabama just dominated most of that game against Notre Dame.
Basically. Yep, they did. So we're all set with Alabama taking on Clemson or Ohio State. Not a big shock to anyone there. So anything else tonight?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a good one.
You too, Mark. Enjoy the game.
All right. A win for the Buckeyes, according to Dominic. Cinnaminson, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Just a simple thank you. Appreciate that. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back here after the game late night with you. We'll take you up to the kickoff here. If I can get our speaker going here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Reagan.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was wondering, do you think Devontae Smith is pretty much a lock for Heisman?
I think he should be. But who knows what Heisman voters are going to vote on, because about half of them roughly should not have a Heisman vote. They don't know much about college football. But I think they know enough to see the best player in college football, at least the best player that touches the football. That we should probably make a distinction there, that the Heisman Trophy doesn't go to the best player in college football necessarily. It goes to the best player that touches the football, and most likely that's going to be a quarterback. But Devontae Smith has certainly just been amazing this year, and I would vote for him to win the Heisman.
Would you think if Kyle Pitts didn't miss the amount of games that he missed, with Devontae Smith possibly winning the Heisman as a receiver, do you think Kyle Pitts would have maybe won it over Devontae?
Well, I think what you would need to do is look at Kyle Pitts' numbers in the games that he played, and then just prorate that out to a full season. And I don't think that they challenge necessarily Devontae Smith's output. Plus, Devontae Smith is playing for a team that's competing for a national championship, and Kyle Pitts is not. And that's taken someone into consideration. And Devontae Smith is more of a dynamic type player. So just take the numbers and prorate them out. Kyle Pitts missed what, about 3 games?
Yeah.
So there you go.
34.
So take about 25% of his output and add it to his season stats, and I don't think they compare to Devontae Smith. They certainly don't from a touchdown standpoint.
All right. Who do you predict to win Heisman?
Who do I predict? Well, anytime anyone asks me who I predict to win the Heisman, you got to understand it's kind of silly to predict what other people are going to vote. It's different than predicting a game, because the game is objective. There is talent on the field, and they're playing a football game and trying to determine who's going to win the game, versus you're asking me who's going to vote for somebody else. I think Devontae Smith's going to win the Heisman. I thought that this was a Kyle Trask award for most of the season. Then I thought that it would come down to the SEC championship game between Mac Jones and Trask. But I really think that there's been a surge for Devontae Smith, and rightfully so. And I've been right there with everyone else, or with a lot of people on the bandwagon for Devontae Smith. I think he is the best football player in the country. And because none of the quarterbacks, the 2 quarterbacks I just mentioned, have been amazing. But I just think that he has set himself apart and had the type season as a wide receiver that we rarely see. Whereas those quarterbacks are having outstanding seasons, but we've got 3 or 4 of them that basically compile similar stats. So they're difficult to differentiate, where he is a wide receiver that is just playing out of his mind. And just to watch him, you got to watch the guy play too. He's the best wide receiver in college football.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't win it, it's going to make people mad, and make them just think this is pretty much a quarterback award, because I agree with you that Devontae Smith is the best player in college football, and that's who the award will go to, or who it's supposed to go to. And so I think people probably get pretty mad thinking it's a quarterback award.
Yeah, the last time there was a vote on the Heisman that I disagreed with and got on here and railed on people about was 2015 and 2016. I was believing that Christian McCaffrey was the best player in the country and should have won the award, and that Deshaun Watson should have won in 2016. But I don't get that uptight about who wins the Heisman Trophy, but a lot of people do, and I do consider it to be the most prestigious award in sports. So I understand a lot of people are passionate and care about it.
Yeah, like, I did think that it would probably be either a Kyle Trask or Mac Jones award. So Trask had that game against LSU where he threw 2 picks, and then Devontae Smith kind of took the lead and probably given it back. So.
Yeah, you're probably right. That was the game that killed Trask. We appreciate the call.
Yeah,
Enjoy the game tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, everyone. We got 170 on the line before Clemson, Ohio State. Of course, the Tigers are the 2 seeds, so they've got the home orange on. Buckeyes wearing the white. Hopefully we get a good game tonight because we certainly didn't get it in game 1 as expected. And we're coming up on kickoff. I don't know when exactly kickoff is. Let's see. We're sitting at 7:50 Eastern time. It's probably about 8:10, 8:15, something in that range. We got Shanghai likes Ohio State 38-36. Oh, okay. Shanghai is basically taking a bit of a shot at Dominic there and their selection. Modine, if college football were real, you wouldn't have these same teams over and over recruiting the best talent. All great players land in Bama instead of some school in sunny California. That would have to be explained to me. I don't think that's necessarily there's anything going on out there that's not above board. When I say not above board, are there deals made under the table with players and schools? I'm not going to dismiss that or deny that, but I think it's widespread. It's not being done by 3 schools. So what we've seen today is Northwestern Auburn. Decent football game, nothing great. It was 14-13 in the third quarter before Northwestern put away Auburn 35-19 in that game. And just really interesting to see the number of players that have opted out. And it's really alarming, possibly, to see the number of players that are hitting the transfer portal that seem to be in good situations where they are. They are starters, they're playing, and they still want to hit the transfer portal and go somewhere else. A number of players from Northwestern and Auburn today either did not meet the COVID requirements, or they've decided to transfer, or just simply opting out for the game to go to the NFL draft. We saw that in that game. I will be posting a video here overnight or early tomorrow recapping my thoughts on Northwestern. They completed another nice season at 7-2. And of course, Auburn minus Gus Malzahn looks to a new coach in Brian Harsin in 2021. He commented and was interviewed during the game, and I think it was a good hire for Auburn. Brian Harsin's a capable coach. I think he's got a plan. I think he's going to do well. He's been fully capable at Boise State, done a nice job there. We also had a very entertaining game between Cincinnati and Georgia. And of course, another example of the group of 5 going up against an elite team on the Power 5 level. A lot of people not believing that a team like Cincinnati could compete against a Georgia. And Cincinnati, in some respects, outplayed them, took them down to the wire, led the entire game, basically, led 21-10 in the fourth quarter, lost on a last-second field goal, 24-21. Actually, 21-19 was the game. If you did not follow the scoring in that one, Georgia kicked a field goal on what is basically the last play of the game, 2 seconds left, kicked a field goal to win 22-21, and then they got a safety on the very last play of the game with a sack in the end zone. So Georgia survives against Cincinnati in what would have been, for a lot of people, and certainly Georgia fans, many would have been totally disgruntled and found that to be embarrassing, losing to Cincinnati. So they avoided that. We got to look at JT Daniels on the national stage at quarterback for Georgia for the first time. I thought he played reasonably well. I thought he missed some throws, which all quarterbacks do, but I thought he missed some obvious throws. He was decent. He's not elusive. He's elusive enough or mobile enough that the defense has to respect him. He will break, contain, and pick up a few first downs here and there, but that is not his game. He's a guy that's going to stretch the field, unlike the last couple of Georgia quarterbacks. And he had a decent game. He had an okay game. And again, I'm going to review the Georgia-Cincinnati situation coming off of that Peach Bowl game and get that video out here in the next day. We got you all set up for tomorrow's action, Indiana and Ole Miss in the Outback Bowl. We heard from the Ole Miss side and the Indiana side and posted those videos earlier today, so check them out. They also have a lot of recruiting news and updates in them as well. And we've got Kentucky and NC State playing at the Gator Bowl tomorrow before the primetime matchups of Oregon, Iowa State at the Fiesta Bowl, and, of course, tomorrow night in what, to me, when announced was the best bowl matchup, Texas A&M and North Carolina at the Orange Bowl. But basically, North Carolina's best players have opted out of the game. So I don't know what to expect. If it turns out to be anything close to what Florida endured against Oklahoma, it's going to be an ugly, ugly night, and we'll probably be here at halftime talking about it and not waiting till the end of the game because it's going to be like 41-7 Texas A&M. North Carolina without its two best running backs, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, two of the best in the country. They're without their best wide receiver, Digami Brown, without their best defensive player, and he's one of the best in the country, just an amazing athlete who was if you don't know the story of Chaz Surratt's journey at North Carolina, he was a quarterback. He was their starting quarterback. And then he moved to safety and was an All-American safety, and now he's playing linebacker. He's opted out. He's going to the NFL, so he's not playing. So North Carolina, without their best defensive player, running backs, and wide receiver, it's going to be difficult for them to keep up with one of the best defenses in the country at Texas A&M. I don't know who has opted out for Texas A&M. We will need to look into that. The transfer portal, between the transfer portal that is blowing up and the 1-year rule that's being put in place because of the pandemic this year that seniors can come back and play an extra year next year is going to make this offseason fascinating. We are going to have so many players to track and keep you up to date on of who's going to be where. To date, we've got 75 quarterbacks who are in the transfer portal, just a quarterback, and over 400 players in the transfer portal. On top of that, check out any roster. Grab your favorite team's roster, run down all the seniors on the roster, and then try to gauge, okay, out of these 22 seniors, who's coming back and who's not. That's the guessing game that every coaching staff in the country has to deal with right now, is trying to determine how many of these seniors are going to come back and play for us. We hope all of them, because it provides depth, and some of them are obviously our best players, but many of them will decide either, well, I'm ready to go to the NFL draft and get a paycheck, and then some will determine I'm never going to be a pro, and for me to get beat up playing college football for another year when it served its purpose, it got me a degree for free education, then I'm good, I'm not playing anymore. So I would think that there would need to be some kind of deadline. That's one thing I've not heard, that there should be a deadline as to when these seniors need to notify their coaching staff of whether they're coming back next year for that extra year. Like we heard De'Ara King announce this week before Miami's bowl game that he's coming back for a 6th season, 4th at Miami, or 4th, 4 of those at Houston and the 2nd at Miami. So the personnel news is going to be just off the charts every day, and it's going to give us plenty of content. In addition to that, keep in mind that even though about 85 to 90% of the top 300 to 500 players signed out of high school football on National Signing Day in mid-December, we still have about 15 to 20% that will sign the first Wednesday of February, so we need to track that, and we will keep you updated on that. We just posted a video a few hours ago concerning one of the very top offensive tackles in the nation, one of the top 10 overall players in the country, Tristan Lee. He makes his announcement tomorrow. And we posted a video today. Check it out concerning his choice between Oklahoma, LSU, and Clemson. All right, everyone. I think we're going to shut it down here. We will be back after Ohio State and Clemson. Should be a good one. Of course, it was a classic last year. We'll see if the Buckeyes can get revenge. See y'all back here right after the game. We look forward to it, and we will see you soon.